The afternoon sun beat down on the tarmac of a small regional airport in Georgia. The air shimmered with heat, and the rumble of departing planes filled the background. Among the scattered workers, a young black mechanic named Darius King crouched near the open panel of a massive private jet. His hands were covered in grease. His shirt clung to his back, and sweat dripped from his forehead as he worked tirelessly on a stubborn engine problem. Darius wasn't supposed to be here this long. He was covering for another mechanic who had called in sick. On most days, Darius took odd shifts just to keep the bills paid. His mother's medical treatments were draining every dollar he earned, and his dream of starting his own auto repair shop felt like a fading star in a dark sky. Yet here he was, working overtime on a jet that didn't even belong to him, praying silently he wouldn't make a mistake. Just a few feet away, impatient footsteps echoed across the runway. The jet's owner, Evelyn Hartwell, a billionaire investor known in the business world for her fierce determination and sharp instincts, was pacing with her phone pressed tightly to her ear. She had an emergency meeting in New York and could not afford delays. Her assistants hovered nervously nearby, stealing anxious glances at the mechanic who was crouched under her multi-million-dollar aircraft. "Ma'am," they said, "he's the only mechanic available right now," one of her staff whispered. "The others are on call in another city." Evelyn narrowed her eyes, watching Darius as he worked. His tools clattered softly, his motion steady despite the pressure. He didn't look up, didn't flinch under her gaze. He just kept working, focused like his life depended on it. And in many ways, it did. Darius knew this was no ordinary repair. The jet's cooling system had failed, and without fixing it, Evelyn's flight would be grounded indefinitely. Every second mattered. For her, it was business. For him, it was survival. Finally, Darius tightened one last bolt and wiped his hands on his ragged shirt. He stood, back straight despite his exhaustion, and said firmly, "Try it now." Evelyn gave a curt nod. The engine roared to life, smooth and powerful, and her sharp expression softened for the first time that day. She looked at Darius differently now, not just as a mechanic, but as a man who had just saved her world from coming to a halt. The roar of the jet's engine echoed across the tarmac, steady and reliable, filling the air with a vibration that made Evelyn pause mid-step. For a woman used to absolute control, it was rare for someone else to surprise her. Yet this young mechanic, drenched in sweat and wearing a shirt with holes near the collar, had done just that. He had pulled off what her highly paid engineers in New York might have needed hours to fix, and he had done it in minutes. Darius lowered his wrench, his chest rising and falling as he steadied his breath. For him, fixing engines was more than a job. It was survival, the only thing that kept food on his table and medicine on his mother's nightstand. But in this moment, standing before Evelyn Hartwell and her entourage, he felt smaller than ever. People like her lived in skyscrapers, drove cars that cost more than he made in a year, and boarded jets like this without a second thought. He never imagined standing face to face with someone like her. Evelyn slid her sunglasses down, studying him closely. "What's your name?" she asked, her tone sharp but not unkind. "Darius. Darius King, ma'am." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Well, Darius King, you just saved me from losing a deal worth more than most people make in a lifetime." She turned slightly, addressing her assistant. "Get me the documents. We'll have the meeting on the plane." Her staff rushed to obey, but Evelyn lingered, her gaze locked on Darius. There was something about his calm under pressure, the way he worked with quiet confidence, that intrigued her. Billionaires met thousands of people, but rarely did someone stand out. This man did, and he wasn't even trying to. Darius, on the other hand, was eager to leave. He grabbed his toolkit, ready to disappear before anyone asked more questions. Attention wasn't what he wanted. A quick paycheck, maybe a thank you, and then back to hustling for the next job. But as he turned, Evelyn called out, "Wait." He froze, slowly facing her again. "I don't like leaving debts unpaid," she said firmly. "Tell me, what do you really want out of life? And don't give me some polite answer. I want the truth." The words hit Darius harder than he expected. No one had ever asked him that. Not really. He swallowed, the weight of his mother's hospital bills heavy on his shoulders, the dream of his own shop burning quietly in the back of his mind. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, someone was willing to listen. Darius shifted uncomfortably, the question hanging in the heavy summer air. He wasn't used to speaking his dreams out loud. Life had taught him that dreams were fragile things, easily broken, easily mocked. He kept his head down, worked hard, and hoped each day wouldn't end worse than it started. But Evelyn's sharp eyes pinned him, demanding an answer. He finally spoke, his voice steady but low. I want to open my own auto shop. Not just for me, for my neighborhood. Where I grew up, kids don't get many chances. I thought maybe if I built something real, I could give them jobs, keep them off the streets. But he trailed off, his shoulders heavy. Right now, I'm just trying to keep the lights on at home. My mom's sick. The hospital bills don't stop. So the dream has to wait. For a moment, Evelyn didn't reply. The sound of the airport filled the silence. Jet engines humming in the distance, voices on intercoms, the faint screech of a rolling luggage cart. Then she stepped closer, her heels clicking against the concrete. You know what I see when I look at you, Mr. King? She asked. Darius blinked, unsure how to respond. A broke mechanic? He offered with a bitter half-smile. She shook her head. No, I see a man who refuses to give up, even when life stacks the odds against him. That's rare. Her words landed with more weight than he cared to admit. Darius wasn't a man who sought validation. He was too used to disappointment. Yet hearing it from someone like her stirred something he thought he had buried. Hope, one of Evelyn's assistants, interrupted nervously. Ms. Hartwell, the meeting documents are ready. We really should board. Evelyn held up her hand, silencing them without taking her eyes off Darius. Give me 5 minutes. Her assistant stepped back, surprised. Billionaires didn't ask for 5 minutes. They commanded them. But Evelyn's curiosity was stronger than her schedule. Darius, she said, soft now, has anyone ever invested in you? Truly invested in your skill and your vision? He gave a dry laugh. People like me don't get investors, ma'am. We just get bills. Evelyn studied him a moment longer, her mind racing in a direction even she hadn't expected. She was a woman who bought companies, properties, stocks, but never had she considered investing in a person she had just met. Yet something told her this wasn't a coincidence. Something told her fate had just introduced her to the right man at the right moment. Darius adjusted the strap of his worn tool bag, glancing toward the parking lot. He hated long conversations with people like her. The rich didn't understand his world, and he didn't belong in theirs. He was just a man trying to survive one paycheck at a time. Still, Evelyn's words lingered in his chest like a spark refusing to go out. I appreciate you asking, he muttered, forcing a polite smile. But I should get going. Got another job lined up. He started to turn, but Evelyn's voice stopped him cold. What if I told you I wanted to hear more? About your shop, about your vision. Not as a mechanic fixing my plane, but as a man with a future. Darius froze. No one had ever asked for more. People saw his callous hands, his cheap clothes, his tired face, and that was enough for them to look right past him. But this billionaire, standing in front of a gleaming jet, was asking him to explain himself. He shifted, unsure. Look, ma'am, people like me don't get fairy tales. I've been hustling since I was 16, doing what I gotta do to keep my family fed. The shop is just a dream. I can't waste time talking about what'll never happen. Evelyn tilted her head, her gaze unflinching. Dreams only die when you stop fighting for them. You're still fighting. I can see it in you. Her words cut deep. He wanted to believe her, but the weight of reality pressed harder. He pictured his mom lying in her hospital bed, bills stacked on the kitchen counter, his little sister texting him about school shoes he couldn't afford. Dreams didn't pay for those things. Long shifts and scraped knuckles did. Still, something in Evelyn's tone unsettled him. She wasn't speaking like a billionaire throwing around easy inspiration. She sounded sincere. Her assistant cleared his throat nervously again. Ms. Hartwell, we really need to go. Evelyn waved him off and took one more step closer. She lowered her voice, almost conspiratorial. Tell me this, Darius. If I gave you the chance, right now, to make that dream real, would you take it? No hesitation, no fear, just yes or no. Darius's heart pounded. He wanted to laugh, to brush it off, but her eyes burned into him with a seriousness that left him breathless. For the first time in years, he felt the ground shift beneath him. A billionaire wasn't just asking about his dream. She was offering to change it. The world seemed to pause around him. The noise of the airport faded, replaced by the pounding of his own heartbeat. Darius searched Evelyn's eyes, half expecting to see mockery hiding behind her polished composure. But there was none. She was dead serious. His throat tightened. Ma'am, with respect, I don't believe in handouts. If I can't build it with my own hands, it won't last. Evelyn's lips curved faintly, almost approvingly. Good, because I'm not offering you a handout, Darius. I'm offering you a partnership. I don't invest in weakness. I invest in potential. And you have it. Darius let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Me? I'm just a mechanic on a runway. You're more than that, she replied firmly. I've dealt with executives who collapse under pressure. You didn't. You kept calm, fixed a machine worth more than some companies, and you did it with precision. That tells me everything I need to know. Her words cut through him like a blade. He wanted to argue, to reject the crazy idea forming between them, but deep inside, something stirred. A voice whispering, what if she's right? What if this is your chance? Still, fear held him back. Even if I believed you, it takes money. A lot of it. Equipment, space, licenses. Things I can't even imagine affording. Evelyn's expression didn't falter. Money isn't the issue. Trust is. And I don't give that easily. But today, you earned it. Darius's jaw clenched. For years, he had carried the burden alone. No shortcuts, no miracles, just endless grinding. And now, standing on a sunburned runway, a billionaire was offering to flip his life upside down. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. Why me? He asked, voice raw. You don't even know me. Evelyn's eyes softened, just enough to reveal a hint of vulnerability. Because I know what it's like to fight your way up from nothing. People looked at me the same way you think I'm looking at you right now. But someone believed in me, and that changed everything. Maybe it's time I do the same for someone else. The words struck like lightning. For a moment, Darius didn't feel like the broke mechanic on a cracked tarmac. He felt seen. Before he could respond, the plane's engine rumbled louder, the signal that her departure couldn't wait much longer. Evelyn glanced back at her staff, then at him. This isn't coincidence, Darius. Think about what I'm offering. She took a step toward the stairs of her jet, but paused, locking eyes with him one last time. When I land in New York, I'll call you. Don't disappear. The jet stairs folded up, and within minutes, Evelyn's plane thundered down the runway, lifting into the orange-streaked sky. Darius stood rooted in place, the heat from the engines brushing against his face as the aircraft disappeared into clouds. His tool bag felt heavier than usual in his hand. He didn't know whether to feel inspired or terrified. Walking toward his beat-up pickup truck, Darius replayed her words in his head. Partnership, potential, trust. Those weren't words people like him ever heard from billionaires. He climbed inside, the cracked leather seat creaking beneath him, and stared at the steering wheel for a long moment. Back home, reality wasted no time crashing down. The kitchen table was cluttered with overdue bills, and his mom's prescription bottles lined the counter like a reminder of every dollar he didn't have. His little sister, Maya, looked up from her homework. "Did you get paid today?" she asked softly. Darius forced a smile. "Yeah, enough to keep the lights on." He ruffled her hair, though inside his chest burned with frustration. He wanted more for her, for all of them. That night, lying awake on a lumpy mattress, he thought about Evelyn. Why him? Why now? What if this was all just a passing remark from a rich woman who would forget his name by the time she touched down in New York? 2 days later, his phone buzzed. The number was unknown, but his gut told him exactly who it was. He hesitated before answering. Darius King? The voice was crisp, confident. Evelyn Hartwell. He sat up straight. "Yes, ma'am." "I don't waste time, Darius. I meant what I said. I want to meet again, properly, tomorrow at my Atlanta office. Bring nothing but your honesty. I'll handle the rest. The call ended before he could reply. He sat frozen, phone still pressed his ear. His heart pounded as a storm of doubts filled his mind. What if he embarrassed himself? What if she laughed at his lack of education, his rough edges, his empty bank account? But beneath all the fear, hope flickered again. The kind of hope he hadn't allowed himself in years. The next morning, wearing the cleanest shirt he owned and shoes he polished until they barely shined, Darius stood before a skyscraper glass and steel in downtown Atlanta. He craned his neck upward, overwhelmed by its size. Inside those walls was a woman who could change his life, or crush him completely. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the doors and stepped inside. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and towering glass windows. Men in tailored suits and women in crisp dresses hurried past, their polished shoes clicking like a rhythm Darius didn't belong to. He felt every wrinkle in his shirt, every scuff on his shoes, every trace of oil that soap hadn't managed to scrub from his calloused hands. At the front desk, the receptionist looked up, her smile polite but hesitant. "Can I help you, sir?" Darius cleared his throat. I'm here to see Ms. Hartwell. Evelyn Hartwell. She told me to come." The receptionist's eyebrows flicked up slightly, as though unsure how a man dressed like him could have business with a billionaire. But before she could respond, a sharp voice echoed from behind. "He's with me?" Darius turned. Evelyn strode across the lobby in a tailored navy suit, her heels clicking with authority. Heads turned as she passed. This was a woman used to commanding rooms. Yet her eyes softened slightly when they met his. "Come on," she said simply, and Darius followed, still stunned by the attention she drew without trying. Upstairs, they entered a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlanta skyline. The view alone was worth more than his entire neighborhood. Evelyn gestured for him to sit. "I don't have much time," she began, folding her hands on the desk. "So I'll be direct. I want to fund your shop." The words hit him like a punch. His mouth went dry. You mean like a loan?" "Not a loan," she corrected. "An investment. You'll run it, own it, grow it. I'll provide the resources. But it's not charity. I expect results." Darius blinked, struggling to breathe. All the nights he'd spent dreaming of this moment, sketching out shop layouts on scraps of paper, counting imaginary tools he couldn't afford. It was suddenly real. But fear surged just as quickly. "Ms. Hartwell, I'm not educated in business. I don't know the first thing about running a company." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "Neither did I when I started. What matters is grit. And you have that. Skills can be taught. Drive can't." Silence hung between them. For the first time in years, Darius felt like the weight of the world might actually lift. Yet doubt clawed at him, whispering that this was too good to be true. Evelyn's voice broke the silence. "The only question left, Mr. King, is whether you're brave enough to take the chance." Darius stared at her, his pulse pounding in his ears. This was it, the moment he had dreamed of, prayed for, but never thought would come. His hands trembled against the armrest of the leather chair. The room felt too big for him, the city skyline beyond the glass too vast, and yet Evelyn's gaze held him steady, like an anchor. He swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm brave," he admitted, "but I know I'm tired of watching my dreams collect dust. If you're really serious, then yes, I'll take the chance." A rare smile spread across Evelyn's face, warm, genuine. She extended her hand across the desk. Darius hesitated for half a second before grasping it. Her grip was firm, decisive, the kind of handshake that sealed futures. "Good," she said softly. Then it settled. For the next hour, Evelyn laid out her vision. She spoke of finding a building, hiring a small team, providing him with not just tools, but mentorship. Darius listened, torn between disbelief and awe. Every detail made his dream feel less like a fantasy and more like a blueprint. When they finally stood, Evelyn surprised him again. She didn't just offer him a contract. She looked him in the eye and said, "Darius, life rarely gives us second chances." I believe this meeting was meant to happen. You saved my jet, but maybe you were sent to fix something bigger than that." His throat tightened. For years, he had carried his burdens alone. But now, standing in the office of a billionaire who believed in him, he felt a weight lift he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. Then, with a spark of boldness, Evelyn did something no one in the room expected. She stepped closer, placed a hand over his, and said with a playful yet serious smile, "So let me ask you, will you let me be your partner in more than just business?" The word stunned him. Was she really proposing? Not marriage, but something deeper, a union of trust and futures entwined? The staff in the corner gasped softly, but Darius could only stare, his heart racing. For once in his life, he didn't feel small. He didn't feel like the poor mechanic with nothing but grease-stained hands. He felt chosen. His lips curved into the faintest smile. "If you're willing to take a chance on me, Miss Hartwell, then yes. I'll take that too." And with that, a billionaire's world collided with mechanic's dream. Not by accident, but by fate.